from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up today on Ag Day, trade tension as President Trump declares he will impose tariffs on imported steel and aluminum.
And there's talk of doing enforcement actions on aluminum and steel. That can roll right back on ag.
Boots on the ground in Mexico, taking a look at a top U.S. trade partner.
I'm Michelle Rook here in Mexico following the international marketing trail for U.S. soybeans.
In analysis, should producers worry about a record amount of meat supplies?
Pork production is going to be up, chicken production's up, beef production is going to be up.
Prepping for planting. And Greg Jennings carries the team on his back and promotes agriculture too.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Clinton is on assignment. Trade deals and trade disruption topping our news this Friday morning. As negotiations continue today to modernize the 24-year-old trade pact known as NAFTA, now comes word that President Trump may impose tariffs on steel and aluminum. There are fears that move could trigger trade disruptions with the biggest soybean buyer, China. The news spooked investors as the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropping as much as 500 points Thursday. President Trump declaring Thursday he will impose tariffs on imported steel and aluminum. The official announcement is expected next week. President Trump is expected to set tariffs at 25% for steel and 10% for aluminum. The Commerce Department recommended the tariffs last month. That announcement created angst in the ag sector, worried that China would retaliate with tariffs assessed against U.S. soybeans.
We're very worried about retaliatory trade measures right now. I mean, there's talk of doing enforcement actions on aluminum and steel. That can roll right back on ag. I mean, these other countries aren't idiots. They know that if we start to whack their industry, they're going to start to whack ours. And one of the easiest ones to whack is agriculture.
China's foreign ministry accuses the U.S. of skirting global trade regulations in its own favor. The U.S. Commerce Department saying Chinese exporters are selling aluminum foil at 49 to 106% below fair market value and are receiving unfair subsidies. Meanwhile, members of Farmers for Free Trade are in Mexico today for the NAFTA talks. They attended Commodity Classic in Anaheim this week. FFT says they are on a mission to make sure farmers always have a voice at the table during U.S. trade talks. As far as the talks, negotiators from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico finished work on regulatory best practices for NAFTA. Last summer, the U.S. Trade Representative's Office described that chapter as a way to ensure transparency and accountability in the development of regulations that could impact the flow of goods from one country to another. Bloomberg says while that represents progress in the talks, it's already been 6 months, and negotiators have completed only 4 of the 30 chapters that form the backbone of NAFTA. Some of the biggest sticking points remain, including a U.S. proposal to require more auto manufacturing in the U.S. and dispute resolution. A delegation of South Dakota farmers just returned from a trade mission to Mexico to talk with their neighbor and customer to solidify this relationship. Michelle Rook traveled with the group participating in the South Dakota Soybean See for Yourself tour.
60% of the United States soybean crop is exported, and Mexico is our #2 market, right behind China. South Dakota farmers on the See for Yourself tour saw that at the Yucatan Peninsula's Puerto Progreso, it's small but efficient, getting U.S. product in 2 days.
We import 2,050,000 tons of grains from the United States.
The largest port in Veracruz completes an expansion in 2019, allowing grain companies to handle Panamax ships and buy 25% more than the 500,000 metric ton annual U.S. soybean volume.
For our terminal, we are focused on having 90% of our raw materials out of the U.S.
Soybean processors also buy from the U.S. as Mexican farmers can't grow enough beans.
It's 70% right now, and we have locally 30%.
The growing livestock and poultry industry in Mexico is also increasing demand for U.S. oilseeds and feed grains. Creo produces 14 million broilers and 1.5 billion eggs a year. They have one of the largest poultry feed mills in the country and source U.S. meal.
85,000.
They buy per year 85,000 metric tons of soybeans from the U.S. Total from the U.S., everything.
The 450,000 metric ton plant prefers to buy from the U.S. versus South America.
They buy from the U.S. because they have good quality and good price.
GCM produces 1.4 million hogs annually and has one of the largest pig feed mills in Mexico. They use U.S. ingredients because of the reliability.
It's high protein, and also it gives us the confidence of the quality of the product.
And they, like many livestock companies, have expansion plans which will provide future export sales. In Mexico, I'm Michelle Rourke reporting for Ag Day.
Thanks, Michelle. Back here at home, Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue vowing to protect the renewable fuel standards and biofuel policy in front of a group of farmers in California this week, but also admitting he needs some schooling on the topic.
I think some people have confused RIN prices with demand. I don't see it that way. I'm meeting with the leadership of the associations tomorrow, and I'm an open book about being educated on that, but I fail to understand how the collaboration or the connection between RIN prices and demand and RVO volume may work together.
The former Georgia governor saying during the press conference he's having conversations and attending meetings trying to understand why corn farmers think they're going to benefit from high RIN prices. He goes on to say he understands the mandate goes out in 2022 and the ag industry needs to be smart and understand how to build for the future rather than depend on a law which will expire. Congressional hearings are now underway to address one of the top items on the president's domestic agenda, infrastructure. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao testified Thursday before the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. Chao says the president's public works plan is designed to change the way roads and bridges are built and maintained across the U.S. by providing seed money to stimulate additional investment. When the plan was unveiled, President Trump called it a $1.5 trillion investment, but most of that money would come from state and local governments and the private sector. The federal government would seed the project with $200 billion. The president also wants to reduce the time it takes for the government to issue permits. Cindy Clausen is filling in for Mike Hoffman today. She joins us this morning for Crop Comments. Cindy?
Good morning, Betsy. We're starting off today in Smiths Grove, Kentucky. Joe Lowe says calving season is in full swing on his operation. He says the area is wet but warm. He does have enough cover to keep the cattle out of the mud. The U.S. Drought Monitor says the whole state is drought-free. And conditions are nice for a horseback ride in Shickley, Nebraska. Jeremy Rowe is gathering the first group of cows to take home to calve. Highs are lingering around 50 to 60 degrees, but there is a possibility of a little snow early next week. As we take a look at our wind speed forecast, we're going to be seeing some pretty windy conditions, especially along the east coast. And also you can see those very windy conditions in the southwestern United States as well. Very windy conditions continue as we get into later on Friday, even along the east coast, while some windier conditions start moving onto the plain states as we get into Saturday morning. That's a look at your national forecast. We'll have more coming up in just a few minutes, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Save time each day and receive the latest market prices directly to your cell phone with market updates. It makes it effortless to stay aware of shifting market prices. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Up next in analysis, production levels in the protein sector expect to push higher this year. How will markets respond? And while the Green Bay Packers missed reaching the Super Bowl this year, they had plenty of success in the Farm Bowl. Details when we head in the country.
With a uniquely powerful formulation of proven ingredients, Resicor Corn Herbicide gives you extraordinary power.
Who wants dessert?
At least when it comes to weeds.
The U.S. could see a record amount of production in the meat case between pork, poultry, and beef. Will global trade prop up prices? Before leaving for Commodity Classic, Clinton discussed the protein sector.
Paul George with Allendale, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Paul, let's talk about the livestock sector and the idea of protein production this year, because we continue to expect records almost across the board.
That's right, and the protein is going to continue to grow, and protein coming from meats.
Right.
Pork production is going to be up. chicken production's up, beef production is going to be up. And that's a bit of our concern as we move forward here to the second quarter in in beef production, where you're going to, you got more cattle on feed. And what we're seeing now in recent data from the USDA, weights continue to creep up. Now, why is that? It's probably because we've had a milder winter in most areas, so that has helped.
Sure.
And we've got cheap corn prices. Cheap corn prices, let's give them an extra couple days, let's give them a couple bushel more corn, and you end up getting larger animals and more meat. And I think that is a concern.
Yeah.
I think, although you got to look at the cattle market, everybody's anticipating this June to being a very tough time. I'm not so worried that June will be. We might see it a little earlier than that, because cattle prices have a tendency of getting it done earlier.
Okay, so you're thinking more of a wet blanket really on top of these markets. Exports, can they overcome any of this?
Exports, I think, in pork has been very, very good. Beef exports this last week were really poor, but they can improve. The problem that we're running into there, we've seen a lot of good meat exports because of the Olympics, to South Korea. So we're not going to have that. So we're going to need China or Japan to step up their pace. And with the trade relationships with Mr. Trump and China, we can't be too excited about the opportunities there either.
Can't dial that up too high. All right, appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more Ag Day right after these messages.
To talk with Paul Georgie one-on-one, call Allendale Incorporated at 800-262-7538 or head online to allendale-inc.com. Ag Day weather, brought to you by Resicor Corn Herbicide, a uniquely powerful formulation. Extraordinary power over weeds.
Welcome back to Ag Day with meteorologist Cindy Clausen. Cindy, when we look at the drought monitor map back here, it looks as if drought is improving in the southeast potentially, but intensifying in the west?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Let's take a look at the map and show you what's going on. Yeah, you can definitely see the improvement over the past 4 weeks, especially in the southeastern United States. We were seeing this all kind of filled in with dryness to moderate drought, even some severe drought in spots, but that's improved. Where we haven't seen improvement is in much of the plain states, all the way up into the northern plains, the Four Corners region. We're going to be keeping an eye on that as we get into not only harvesting of winter plants, also getting into spring planting as well. All right, as we get into your forecast for the week, we're going to be looking at two major areas. One is in the northeastern United States. We have a strengthening system that's going to bring very windy conditions, rain and snow, and we're going to have another system in the west bringing some rain and upper elevation snow there. In between, we're going to have a couple of days where we have high pressure and nice conditions, which will be really nice for some of those flood ravaged areas, give them a couple days to dry out. As we get into tonight, we still see some rain and snow in the northeastern United States. Very windy conditions are expected there. Rain and upper elevation snow in the west. Heading into your Saturday morning, we're going to be seeing more of the same drier conditions in the central United States with some rain and snow out in the west. And we'll start to see that system pulling a little further away, so you see it a little bit more spotty, but still a chance for a few flakes in the northeastern United States. And heading through the day on Saturday, still fairly quiet for much of the Corn Belt down into the Gulf Coast states, but we have rain and some upper elevation snow in the west. Those two areas are where we're really watching as far as the precipitation. That will continue, especially in the northeastern United States, kind of the northern parts of the mid-Atlantic states into the northeast, and we'll see that rain and upper elevation snow continue to push to the east. Here's a look at the snow, and yeah, you're going to really see that spreading into eastern parts of Pennsylvania, into New York, and you're going to see the western system moving on into parts of Montana, Wyoming as well. Temperature-wise, a lot of 30s and 40s across the northern tier of states today, 50s and 60s across a lot of the south, getting into the 70s though as you get down into the deep south. Heading into the overnight hours, we'll see those temperatures, well, a little closer to normal in many locations. Pretty cold though as you get up towards the Great Lakes, as we see kind of a trough there. Your temperatures for tomorrow should be slightly cooler for a lot of the southern United States, but it's sticking somewhat close to normal in much of the northern tier of states. Jet stream shows a couple of troughs, one moving off the east, but we'll have another one that's going to be moving across the country, so look for some stormy weather on at least the front side of that, and it could be a pretty cold finish to the week in the northeastern United States. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check out the weather where you live. Cottonwood, Idaho, colder with snow showers today and a high of 34 degrees. Sunny and a touch warmer in Bushy Head, Oklahoma today with a high of 62 degrees. Windy with snow showers in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania with a high of 41.
Up next, planter prep tips from Farm Journal College TV. And Wisconsin kids are exposed to a possible career in agriculture, and some football stars are pointing them that way.
Uh-oh.
Planting season is upon us in the South, but it's still a couple of months away in the Midwest. Is your planter ready to go? In today's Farm Journal College TV, agronomist Missy Bauer takes a closer look at prepping your no-till coulter.
Today we're going to talk a little more about the no-till coulter itself. It's really important if you are running a no-till coulter in a no-till situation that it's set properly. We typically want these coulters running about a 1/4 inch shallower than the bottom of these double disc openers, so we can utilize a level as long as our main toolbar is set and check that in the shop. Gauge wheels are a real common problem area on planters. What I find is a lot of people don't have their gauge wheels set properly. When you check it in the shop, lift them up into that running position and try to pull out on them. There should be no space between the inside of this gauge wheel and the disc opener. If there's space in there, then soil can get in there from the surface, dry soil, falls back out into the trench before we get it closed. Cause a lot of problems with that microenvironment. Another thing that's important on this lower half of the row unit is these opening discs. This is what's going to create that true V opening for you where your seed's going to drop down into the bottom of. So depending on the manufacturer, most manufacturers are going to say we can only allow for a 1/2 inch of wear here. So you want to pull these off and measure from the backside, see what the diameter is. If you've had more than a 1/2 inch of wear, then we're going to want to replace those. The other thing that's important here is making sure the point of contact is set properly. So again, that will depend on the manufacturer and what they recommend there, but the way we can check that is take a business card and slide it in from the bottom and another one in from the top, and where those come together is called our point of contact. On the case planter, that'll be quite a bit different. We actually don't want contact there because we got a firming point in there that's going to create that V bottom. But you want to make sure that's set properly as well.
Still to come, farmers and football players battle on the gridiron for a good cause, and the country is next.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential. In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
Farming and football, there's a big link in the dairy state. Recently, some farmers joined forces with NFL players to promote agriculture as a possible career. In this video from the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board, get ready to rumble at the Farm Bowl.
In an event designed to inspire youth to consider a career in modern agriculture, 6 teams of farmers and NFL players paired up to complete tasks loosely resembling those on the farm. Team Huskers included Wisconsin dairy farmer Amber Horn-Lederman and former Green Bay Packers wide receiver Greg Jennings.
It was awesome. It's a big deal. It was very much a big deal and a lot of fun.
Amber and Greg competed as a team through a series of timed challenges, and one of the tasks, the hay bale backup, proved to be quite challenging for Greg.
I flat out panicked.
You did panic.
Like, I mean, just completely, there is no other.
There were sometimes I don't think you remembered what gear you were on.
I didn't.
And I'm like, you're good, go.
Despite the setback, Jennings and Horn-Lederman were pleased with their performance and the opportunity to showcase agriculture.
A lot of people don't know where their food comes from. And with this modern technology or modern farming, it's allowing us to produce more with less. It also means less people know where their food comes from. They think it comes from a grocery store, and that's just not true. So this really sheds a light.
My biggest takeaway is farming is fun. Farming is fun. It's just like anything. It's how you approach it, it's your mentality behind it, and what you make of it. So make it fun. Let's have more farmers out there.
Regardless of who took away the title of Farm Bowl champions, the day was full of excitement and inspiration for the next generation of agriculturalists. And that's Wisconsin Dairy News.
Today, less than 2% of the U.S. population touches farming. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For Clinton and Cindy, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.
Ag Day, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.